I'd like to congratulate all Southwark trade unionists, council workers, residents and community workers and groups who've turned out here today to tell this council they won't accept these cuts, and they've got a real fight on their hands. In the South East London Council of Action, we've been working with tenants on the Haygate and Aylesbury estates who are under a medieval siege by Southwark Council, which has cut off water and heating to Haygate tenants who are still living there, and is trying to drive tenants out of their council homes and give up their council tenancies on the Aylesbury estate, which is the largest council estate in Southwark. Now, in the elections last May, the Tory Lib Dem coalition was booted out in Southwark and a Labour council was returned. And to their disgrace, the Labour council signed a deal with Lend-Lease to give them everything they want at the Haygate estate. And people on the Haygate estate had no choice. They were bullied, harassed and threatened to move from their homes. A perfectly decent council estate with 1,200 council homes. Their services were run down and they were threatened with eviction. And we in the South East London Council of Action intend to defend all tenants threatened with eviction, whether they're on the Haygate estate, the Aylesbury estate or any other council estate. And shame on Labour councillors who evict people and who work with private developers to destroy council housing. It's an absolute disgrace.
Not so many months ago, David Cameron, Osborne and Clegg announced a war on our class. They want to turn the clock back to Victorian times, to an era before we had the National Health Service, before we had free education, before we had public services. And now Cameron has announced this week that after this cuts package, he wants everything we've got. This is a fight for our lives. And if we don't win this battle, then our class and people like us will lose their lives in cold flats, on cold estates in the winter, with people who have not enough food to live on and not enough money to buy decent clothes to keep them warm. Cameron, the hypocrite, is saying that he supports the protests in the Middle East. We'll see how much he likes protests on March the 26th, where we will have the biggest demonstration of trade unionists for a century. But I'll say this now, March the 26th can't be the end of the campaign. It must be the start, and the leaders of our trade union movement must issue a claim that we must build for a one-day general strike of all workers to push this government back and defeat them. I'll just make one more point. Those Labour councillors in Southwark, like the Labour councillors in Lambeth, in Lewisham, in Liverpool, in Manchester, it's decision time. Are you on the side of Cameron and Clegg? Are you on the side of the workers who work for you and the communities you represent? It's time to make a choice. You should stand with the people who voted you in and the people who represent you. You should issue a needs budget. You should unite with the people who voted you in and work with you. And you should say to these condemned coalition politicians that we will stand with the people that we represent and not with the government and the bankers and big business.
Hello? Yes. The day centres are being closed, although these are a vital service and a lifeline for our pensioners and disabled people. The libraries will be closed. The care, home care, is a deplorable disgrace and has been and needs to be improved. What we need today is better services, not cuts in services. But the last point I want to make is this. We are not going to get anywhere if the most we can get is a couple of hundred people or so down here tonight. We've got to work very hard and very patiently to build the kind of movement which we haven't had in this country since the 1980s. But we need something even bigger than that. We've got to work together, pensioners, the youth and everybody work together in a united campaign. There's a big agenda, thousands of pensions out there, about 6,000 or 7,000 pensioners in Southwark living in isolation and poverty. And that situation won't be changed until we get rid of this government and change and get a government which is going to do what the people want. And so please do all you can to make sure you build this movement and rapidly and get people involved. Thank you very much.
Well done, Tony!
There's an economic crisis, all right, but I tell you who's not suffering from it. It's the bankers, the super rich, the multinational corporations that make profit out of the work of ordinary people. They say that there's no money to maintain old people's daycare centres, to look after young people, to give people a decent education. This week, Barclays Bank announced £6 billion in profit. The bankers are paying themselves a total of £14 billion in bonuses for a handful of people that control this economy. Labour was elected to represent working class people who thought that they would stand up for them. Let nobody believe that these cuts are inevitable. They are not inevitable. They can be stopped, but they can only be stopped if working class people in Southwark, in Lewisham, in Lambeth and across the country get together, get organised in the workplace, in the communities and mobilise people to get out anybody that votes for cuts.
A number of speakers, including the last speaker, mentioned the fact that it is the bankers who caused this crisis, and that it is the bankers like the guy from Barclays, whose name I forget at the moment.
He just earns 15 million a year, that's all you need to know.
You don't need me to tell you about that bastard. Bob Diamond, that's his name. Diamond by name, Diamond by paycheck.
Blood Diamond!
Blood Diamond, that's very good. And it is a fact that this is happening all over Britain and in fact all over the world. And the people of the Middle East and North Africa have shown us what to do when they use inflation to impoverish us, when they use mass unemployment to drive down wages, when they cut benefits and pensions to drive our elderly people, our disabled comrades and also our workers into poverty. And they've also shown us how to fight back. And that's why I think this should just be the beginning. Just like in 1989 and 1990, there were demonstrations and scuffles with the police like this all over Britain when they set the budgets, when they set the poll tax. And we converged on central London then to put paid to the poll tax. We can do the same on March the 26th. And on March the 26th, as well as making it a militant day of protest, we should make sure that it is the day that the streets of London ring out with the demand for a general strike to bring down the government. Thank you. Right, thank you very much, Jeremy. Now, Speaker Michael DeVerne, I think, who was going to speak, is actually, I understand, inside the council chamber. And I have to say that those of us, including myself, who are going in as deputations to hopefully speak to the council, we have applied for speakers' rights, and we have been told that we certainly will be given tickets to the council chamber now, but we and other people who are going to be in the deputations need please to go up to the top of the steps.
deputation that we applied for through the proper channels, through the democratic process. We were told that the deputation was refused. Who by? By the Lib Dems? No. They stood up and made the motion. By the Labour councillors who every single Labour councillor in that chamber has just sat and refused to vote on the motion to allow us to speak, to use our democratic right to listen. Exactly. Shame, shame, shame. Now there's pensioners sitting in there who want to listen to how the meeting goes. So for their rights, we've said, fair enough, we won't kick up a fuss to the state that the public gallery gets closed, which I wanted to do. But we shouted and we clearly said to them, shame, shame. We clearly said to them, you are supposed to be doing proper consultation. You said you wanted to listen to people's views. You said you wanted to represent your local people. You said you didn't want to make the cuts. Yet you're refusing to sit and listen to a deputation used by our democratic right for what, 20 minutes maybe? We would have been allowed 5 minutes to speak each and 5 minutes questions for 4 groups. That's a maximum of 40 minutes. And those Labour councillors have just sat there with their sitting on their hands and refused to allow us to speak.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. Tony Gard from Movement for Justice. We're not waiting for an election. If we wait for an election to get some change, the cuts will all have gone through. It'll be too late. People will have died. There's no point in waiting for an election. We need action. Action and mass action is the only way we're going to stop these cuts. I said earlier, we need to do what they did in Egypt when they burnt down their party headquarters, and what they're doing right now in Madison, Wisconsin in the USA, when they've taken over the state buildings to stop the cuts going through. Town halls like this have to be occupied so these councillors can't meet and vote through the cuts. And if they won't let us in, let's face it, the guys back here are public sector workers like many of us. They're not the Libyan army, right? We can get in these places if there are enough of us determined to do it. And, you know, before too much longer, we're going to have to do that at this town hall or some other town halls in order to stop the cuts. We need more social unrest, not more speeches. We need more apart from my speech, of course. We need more social unrest and not more elections where Labour gets elected again and does the same bloody thing again.
We can either go in there and walk past these people who don't really want to stand there, who don't really want to be affected by the cuts, which will affect directly them and their family. They don't want to stand there and defend this. We can easily walk past them. If a good 20 of us decided to go in there, we could make this intervention now. We can occupy it now. Does anybody want to do this now? Because that is the only way. That is the only way and single way that we can make an intervention. Who is willing to do this with me now? Can we go now? Can we go?
Push! Push! Let us in! 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 Hey, hold the line! Hold the line! Okay. All right. Okay, mate, okay. Let us in! Hold the line! Get back! So like,